Welcome to Storytime, where nightmares get behind the wheel. Tonight, we bring you a chilling, true-style tale of a late-night Uber ride that turned into a journey straight into terror. This one's called Rated 5 Stars by the Dead. Buckle up. Story 1. It was just past midnight when Darren, a 28-year-old software engineer from Phoenix, booked his Uber home. He had stayed late at work finishing up a deadline, and by the time he left, the office lot was nearly empty. The night was unusually cold, the city unusually quiet. His phone buzzed. Your Uber driver, Alex M., is arriving in 2 minutes. Darren glanced at the driver's profile. 4.9 stars over 2,000 trips. Car, black Toyota Camry. License plate, 913 VEX, nothing unusual. The Camry pulled up exactly 2 minutes later. The windows were tinted, but Darren could make out the driver's silhouette. As he opened the back door, a cold gust rushed out from the car. The interior smelled like mint, leather, and something else. Old, like forgotten clothes sealed in plastic.
Darren, the driver asked.
His voice was soft. Polite monotone. Yep, Darren replied, getting in. Just silence as the car pulled away from the curb. At first, Darren was relieved. Quiet drivers were his favorite. Hey, Darren said. I think we missed the turn for I-10. The driver responded without turning his head. There's construction. This way is faster. Darren checked Google Maps on his phone. There was no construction. In fact, the car was heading in the opposite direction, toward the Salt River industrial area, full of empty warehouses and dead-end roads. Listen, I'm not comfortable going this way, Darren said, now clearly uneasy. No response. The driver's hands were stiff on the wheel. His neck looked oddly rigid, like it was hard for him to move his head. Darren reached for the door handle, locked. He quickly pulled up the Uber app to hit the emergency button, but the trip wasn't showing up. It had vanished from his history. The car kept driving deeper into darkness. Darren's panic rose. Let me out of the car, man. Now, still no response. The road narrowed. Streetlights grew scarce. Soon, there was nothing but shadows and the faint sound of tires crunching gravel. And then, the car stopped. They were in front of an old boarded-up textile mill. The place looked abandoned. Windows smashed, vines crawling up the walls, rust eating through the metal fence. The driver finally turned around. Darren's breath caught in his throat. The man's skin was pale, too pale. His eyes were completely gray, like cataracts in both pupils. His mouth opened slowly, unnaturally wide. He whispered, "We're here." Then, a notification sound. Darren looked down. A message had popped up on his phone. Please rate your trip with Alex M. He hadn't even gotten out of the car. The screen showed a 5-star rating already selected. He didn't touch anything. But worse, next to his profile photo it said, "Thanks for riding. Time of arrival, 12:59 a.m. drop-off location. Hollow." Darren turned to open the door. This time it opened easily, too easily. He fell out onto the gravel, scrambled to his feet, and sprinted down the road, not daring to look back. Darren didn't stop until he reached a gas station nearly a mile away. He burst inside, breathless and shaking. The cashier asked if he needed help. The driver took me to some mill. He wasn't human. The cashier, an older woman, froze. You said Uber? She asked. What kind of car? Black Camry license plate 913 VEX. She slowly stepped back and sat down. Driver and his passenger, both dead. Burned so bad they had to use dental records. Darren thought it was a joke, it wasn't. The woman walked over to a pinboard behind the register and pulled off an old, faded newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Fatal rollover. 2 die in fiery crash on river route." Under it, photos of the wreck. A black Camry, license plate 913 VEX, and Darren didn't sleep for days. He filed a report with Uber, called the police, even tried to reach out to the app's tech support. There was no record of his trip. No record of any driver named Alex M. in his area. And his account showed zero activity on the night it happened. But every time he opened the app, that same message would flash for a second, before disappearing again. Thanks for riding. Rated 5 stars by the dead. Story 2. Sarah, a 22-year-old college student in Chicago, was headed home from a night out with friends. It was a Wednesday. Not exactly party night, but she'd had a rough week and just needed to blow off steam. Around 1:17 a.m., she stepped out of the bar and opened the Uber app. Her driver was already nearby. Black Honda Accord license plate, 72B-KX9. The app said, arriving in 2 minutes. But just then, a black Honda pulled up right in front of her. No waiting, no headlights. The driver rolled the window down and said, "You, Sarah?" She checked the license plate. 72B-KX6 close, off by a digit. But it was cold. She was tired. Maybe the driver had updated their car info late. She nodded and got in. From the start, something felt strange. The driver didn't say a word. Just silence. She glanced at her phone. The trip hadn't started. "Hey, are you going to start the ride on the app?" she asked. The driver just nodded but kept driving. Sarah frowned. Okay, weird. The streets they were on were familiar, at first. But soon, the tall buildings gave way to shadowy warehouses, and the city noise faded into eerie quiet. She checked her location. The app still hadn't loaded a route. "Sorry, where are we going?" she asked, still no answer. Then, softly, the driver said, "Shortcut." His voice was hoarse, croaky like someone who hadn't spoken in years. Sarah's unease turned into fear. She reached for her phone and tried to cancel the ride, but the app crashed. Literally crashed, screen went black. Then rebooted, with no ride history at all. They turned onto a road she didn't recognize. No lights, no other cars. And then, she saw it. The driver's hands on the wheel, they were gray. Not pale gray, like dry clay, veiny, lifeless. And his nails, cracked, brown as if they were rotting. Sarah's heart slammed into her chest. She tried to speak, but her mouth went dry. She reached for the door handle. Locked. The window? Wouldn't budge. And the driver started humming, low. Off-key, childlike. It was the tune of Ring Around the Rosie. Then he said almost gleefully, "They all go down here. You're just the next one." Sarah screamed and kicked at the door. She opened her phone again, this time turning on the flashlight, and she aimed it at the driver's face. What she saw didn't make sense. His skin was dry and cracked like old paper. His eyes were rolled back, just white. He had no lips, just teeth, long, jagged teeth visible through a stretched grin. She grabbed anything she could from her purse, her metal water bottle, and slammed it into the window, over and over. Crack. Crack, shatter. She threw herself through the broken window, landing hard on the gravel road. Her arms were cut, blood running down her side. The car screeched to a halt. She didn't look back, she ran. After what felt like hours, she saw headlights in the distance and waved frantically until a delivery truck stopped. The driver helped her inside and called 911. She told them what happened. Police showed up within minutes. They searched the road. No black Honda. No driver. Nothing. But here's where it gets worse. She showed the police her Uber app. There was no record of any trip booked that night. No ride, no history. Nothing. But when the officer looked closely, he noticed something chilling. The help section of her app had been replaced by a screen that read, "Thank you for riding. We'll be seeing you again." Sarah deleted the app, changed her number. Moved home for a while. But a week later, she received a small package. No return address. Inside was a toy car. A black Honda Accord, the license plate read 72B-KX6. Story 3. Emily, a 31-year-old photographer from Seattle, had just wrapped up a solo shoot on the outskirts of the city. It was nearly 11:45 p.m. when she packed her gear, locked the studio, and opened her Uber app. She requested a ride back to her apartment in Capitol Hill. The nearest driver was 5 minutes away. Driver, Brian P. 495 stars. Car, white Kia Sorento, plate 6FAR298. As she waited in the quiet alley behind the building, she noticed how silent everything had become. Not a single car, no wind. Even her phone signal dipped to 1 bar. Then headlights appeared around the corner. White Kia matching plate. The car rolled to a slow, almost silent stop. The back window was fogged up. The driver leaned slightly over the passenger seat and smiled. "Emily?" She nodded and got in. At first, it was normal. The driver was friendly but calm. Mid-30s, wore glasses, soft-spoken. He didn't speak much, but the route was correct and her phone confirmed it. She relaxed, but then she noticed something weird. Every few minutes, the driver would glance nervously at the rearview mirror. Not at her, at the seat behind her, and his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Emily glanced behind her casually, nothing there. She assumed maybe he was just anxious or tired. Long shifts, maybe, so she didn't say anything. But a few minutes later, he whispered, barely audible, "Don't talk to it." Emily froze. "Excuse me?" The driver said nothing. He just kept driving. The next 5 minutes were filled with complete silence. Then, the air grew freezing cold. Emily checked the AC. It was off. Suddenly, she felt pressure on the seat beside her, like someone had just sat down. She whipped her head to the side, still nothing there. And then, in the rearview mirror, she saw it. For just a second, a face. Not human gray. No eyes, no mouth. Just skin stretched like wax over a skull. Gone in a blink, she gasped. "Stop the car!" The driver didn't respond. She reached for her phone. It was dead. She knew it was at 70% 5 minutes ago. Emily leaned forward. "What's going on?" The driver, without turning his head, said, "I didn't pick it up. It just gets in sometimes. I tried ignoring it. It didn't like that." The car's interior lights began to flicker. Emily tried the door handle, locked. She looked into the rear view again. The thing was behind her now, clearly visible, sitting upright, leaning forward, its featureless face just inches from hers. Then, in her ear, a voice that didn't belong to anyone whispered, "We've met before." Emily screamed. The car swerved. The driver was trying to keep it together, sweat pouring down his face. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "It follows me now. Every ride, I keep the rating up so it doesn't punish me." The car came to a screeching halt on the side of an empty road. The locks clicked open. "Get out," the driver said urgently. Emily didn't hesitate. She flung the door open and tumbled onto the street. As she rolled onto the gravel, she looked up, but the car was gone. No headlights. No taillights. Vanished into the night like it had never been there. She walked nearly 2 miles to the nearest gas station. They let her charge her phone. She checked her Uber app. No trip history. No driver named Brian P. No white Kia ever assigned to her account. But when she opened her photos folder, there was one image she hadn't taken. A dark, grainy photo from the inside of the car. She was in the back seat, asleep. And behind her, in the photo's reflection, that same blank-faced thing, its hand resting gently on her shoulder. Some passengers aren't there when you open the door, but once they ride with you, they never leave. Subscribe to Storytime for more chilling real-life horror stories. And remember, if your Uber ever feels too quiet, you might not be alone.